With that, we'll move to our next speaker, Arun Ramakani, a technology enthusiastic and passionate distributed platform development expert, and currently working as a chief architect at Snowball, experienced in playing the role of chief architect in building a successful ride-sharing startup from scratch with a cloud-native technology stack, a blogger, a meetup speaker, and passionate about helping individuals in their cloud native learning journey. So with that, over to you, Arun. We welcome you. Hello, Arun?
Yeah. 1 second. Are you able? I'll share my screen. Wait a minute.
Sure.
Yeah. Are you guys able to see my screen?
It's popping in, Arun. Yes, we are good.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm in the last slide somehow. So while the slide goes up to the first slide, let me quickly talk about the introductions. So I'm very happy to talk in this conference, especially it has been hosted out of Cochin. I started my technology career in Cochin few years back, almost 12 years back, and it's been a great journey. And I still remember many cherishing memories from Cochin. So I'm very happy and excited to talk in this particular conference. And hold on for a second. For some reason, I'm not able to get into my first slide.
No worries, Arun. You can take your time.
Yep. Okay. It's pretty slow. Yeah. That's cool. So in the last few years, I have experienced in working in multiple projects that involve application deployment into Kubernetes. And these projects start from a small single page application to very complicated multi-dimensional microservice based applications. So managing this Kubernetes YAML and getting that deployed across the cluster was challenging when it becomes a little complicated applications. So the agenda of this talk is to look at various requirements that is involved in managing these YAMLs, and how could we manage this YAML and deliver this YAML up to the cluster, up to the cluster. So agenda for this talk would be first looking at what involves a Kubernetes YAML and what is an anatomy of the Kubernetes YAML, and then look at who are all the people who will be contributing to this Kubernetes YAML, and some set of guiding principle on how could we select the tools for managing this YAML and delivering this YAML to production, and then how could we deploy that, and then we have a quick demo. And at first we will look at the Kubernetes YAML is very huge, and it has a multi-dimensional content with deep details to it. So if you look at from an application development perspective, we have the part spec, where we define what is the image that we are going to use, what version of it, what is the memory that we are going to use, and things like that. And there is volume that is going to actually tell us do we need any kind of storage for this particular part. And we have service that is going to tell us how are we going to expose this part as a service or a web page, whatever it is. And then we have deployment that is going to say how many number of instances we are going to have and things like that. And the next one is ingress. How do we expose it through a domain name to the external world. We'll come into this. And next we look at list of configurations that is coming under application ops, which is configs that is needed for the application, and list of secrets that is needed for the application, and labels for organizing the applications in production. Things like, for example, all staging application going to particular namespace, on all production application going to a different namespace, things like that. And the third thing is cluster ops. The cluster ops parameters, like we might have cluster-wide network rules, cross-cutting concerns like logging, monitoring, delivering the sealed secrets for the application into the production, and setting across policies. Just some time back, we had open policy agent session where we looked at policies. So there could be policies on how we deploy these parts. So this Kubernetes YAML that we have to maintain has many different aspects to it, and it has very deep details to it. Managing this YAML could become very complex unless we get this across deployed through a right pipeline. So next we will look at who is going to actually contribute to this YAML. When we start as a simple project, maybe a couple of members development team in a small company, we might write everything out of a single developer, or a DevOps engineer might write everything into YAML and deploy that into production. That might be a simple case. As soon as your team becomes little big, you become a 10-member team, 15-member team, you might have various stakeholders who would be contributing to this YAML. So let's look at some of these contributors. So first of all, developers queue informations like what is the part spec and things like that. And there could be security engineers who might come and say, okay, particular namespace, whichever part deployed into this namespace cannot be accessed by part deployed in namespace Y. So they might come up with rules like that, and those has to be coded as YAML. And architects, they might come and say that, okay, this should have 3 replicas, this application should have 5 replicas in production, and they should be scheduled in particular node in production, and things like that. And there could be DevOps engineers who are either application operators or cluster operators, who might have sense like, okay, of all the application that is deployed into production should have owner name in their part spec, so that we are able to, whenever there is an issue, we are able to rightly point out who is the owner of this part, and rightly point out to them. So there could be this information to the YAML is contributed by this many number of people. Now we have to find out list of tools where we are able to deliver and prepare this YAML and deliver to Kubernetes cluster. Now we will look into some of the guiding principles that we could use to select these tools. First of all, this tool should be able to support different team construct. For example, we have looked at different stakeholders contributing to the YAML. They might be in a single team, they might be in a separate team. For example, some organizations set up architects might be sitting outside, some organizations set up DevOps engineer might sit outside to the team. So it could be a different team construct. Each organization might have its own shape and size. So it should support different team construct, and easily people should be able to collaborate. The next one is we should be able to version control and cross-pollinate. I have seen people managing deployments of their custom build application into the Kubernetes cluster through operators, where we don't know what is happening under the hood. So the whole declarative YAML should be actually version controlled in Git, and you should be able to reuse that full YAML for a different project or to the open source community. So we should be able to cross-pollinate those things that we develop. And it should be actually fully exposed to Kubernetes API. There are many domain-specific languages that are built over Kubernetes API, and that exposes only few parameters. And as soon as people start using those tools for some time, they will realize that they need to customize some more parameters. So we should be able to fully use every parameter that is available with Kubernetes API. And we should have proper segregation of concern. So if you look at different stakeholders, they might be completely different in nature. For example, a security rule that is put by a security engineer might not be in sync with, might not be needed to be visible for an engineer who is developing the code. So we should be able to segregate, okay, this is an architectural concern, this is a operational concern stuff, and this is an developer concern stuff. We should be able to clearly segregate them in the code. And the final thing is application security and cluster security. So we might have designed the cluster for in a certain way. For example, a pod cannot have more than 1 GB of RAM usage. So we would have set up those security. So since these YAMLs are contributed by many people, we should make sure that nothing unsecure goes into the cluster. And of course, the cost of the workflow. So when we say that we are going to build a pipeline where people are able to collaborate, we should not involve tools that brings up our cost. So now let's look into a sample workflow where we are able to build and deploy the application into Kubernetes. So first, we should be able to pack the application. Here we will be able to, we should be describing the application, map its dependency, and pack them all together. This could be done by tools like Helm. And then we should be able to overlay and patch and apply policies. Like, for example, an architect policy about policy that comes out of an architecture, policy that comes out of a security engineer. Those things should be overlaid over the Helm template that we have already generated. So this is overlay. And once the overlay is done, we should be able to deliver this whole YAML into production with full GitOps in place, where we have complete history of what is the YAML and how is the YAML changing. And we should be able to protect our production from any manual changes, completely operating out of Git with some kind of GitOps tools like Flex. And the final stage would be to protect the cluster. We should be able to protect the cluster from policies. For example, the policy that I said some time back, where we have 1 GB memory maximum limit for all the parts. So those should be, we should be able to configure that into production, and then protect our server from any kind of rogue YAMLs that is coming into the cluster. Now, let's look into detail of each of this stage. Say we have, why do we need packing? This diagram represents a typical application that has a database tier, backend tier, and frontend tier. If you look at the number of YAMLs that is needed to deploy this application, there are too many. For example, backend needs its own service, secret, and deployment. The same is needed in database tier. The same is needed in frontend tier. So we have too much YAML, and other than that, we could have configs, network rules, and things like that. And so we have too many stuff. So we should be able to somehow organize them into a single pack, and that could be done by tools like Helm. So when we create a Helm chart, what do we have in the Helm chart? Helm chart will have a chart.yaml, and which will have informations like what is going into the what is the application, what version it is, and what is the chart version, description of the application, things like that goes into chart YAML. And the license file, which is optional, which you provide, and you could provide a README, and you could provide a requirement where we could say, okay, this chart is dependent on this many charts. So, and those chart could be actually deployed before deploying this chart. And there could be, we'll look at values.yaml shortly. Before that, let's look into template folder. Template folder will have all of the templated YAMLs that we saw above. We should be able to pull those YAML here and template it. And charts folder will have all the dependency charts, and values will have, in the template folder, we would have placeholders for certain values, say number of replicas. Those values could be passed on runtime with values.yaml. And once we are able to pack, next we should be able to do overlay, customize the YAMLs that is generated out of Helm. So that can be done with tools like Kustomize, where we are able to write a patch and apply that patch, and that patch can be overlaid over the YAML, and then you get a new updated YAML which is applying the patch. Here is an example where we see that, okay, in the production we need more number of replicas, and in staging we need less number of replicas. This is a typical example where I need the same Helm template, but in production I need 5 replicas. In staging I need 2 replicas. So we should be able to, this could come out of an operational engineer or an architect. This patch can be written by them and then put into our continuous deployment cycle and patched. And then we will get an, once we patch everything, we will get a fully functional YAML that is ready to be deployed in production. The next stage should be to deploy this into production. This can be done with tools like GitOps tools like Flux, where these tools, they do nothing like, for example, we have an agent within the cluster. That GitOps agent will continuously look into a Git folder and see if there is any change in the Git folder and sync those changes into production. The advantage of doing such things is, say if someone is doing something manual change into the cluster and he forgets. This happens whenever we debug something, we could go back and do something manually into the cluster, or when we do a hot fix, we might do such things. So when we do such things, the cluster could have some change which is not in Git. So when we cluster can actually identify those changes and alert us, okay, you have done all these changes into the cluster manually, and we could operate the complete cluster out of a Git. We'll be able to rebuild a new cluster out of the Git just like that. And this will bring in advantages like security, compliance, and stuff. The next thing is about governing. Before this YAML is entering into the production, we should be able to govern it. So when this YAML is submitted, we should be, you know that it flows through API server. When it flows through the API server, it passes through authentication, authorization, and then it goes to admission controller. This we can actually deploy Gatekeeper, which is an admission controller webhook, and that could actually, we could write then Rego policies with policy constraint and policy template and deploy into the cluster. And this Rego policies then actually govern, okay, my maximum pod memory spec is 1 GB. If it is more than that, then reject. Whenever this query is happening, this admission webhook, whenever it is down, whenever this admission webhook is invoked, this policy YAML will, the Rego YAML will actually run and see if the YAML is fully compliant with the policies that are written. And if the policy is not compliant, then it will reject the YAML, and it will, we could do some kind of alerting mechanism to say that, okay, our YAML is not fully compliant with the policy. Now we are looking at a full workflow, and this workflow could be completely tool agnostic. So we looked at a few sample tools in the top, like Helm, Kustomize, and then GitOps tools like Flux, and then Open Policy Agent tools like Gatekeeper. But this whole flow can be completely tool agnostic, but we could have a concept. The concept is, first we should be able to pack, which could be any tool, and once it is packed, we should be able to overlay that with different patches, and that could come out of operators, security engineers, or whomsoever it is, and then put it across into a Git repository that can actually do a GitOps to sync them into production. And then while syncing, we should be able to govern that with policy. This is the overall workflow that we are looking at. So now let's quickly look into a demo. Hope you guys are able to see my demo screen.
Yes, Arun.
Yeah. So now first what we will do is we will create a Helm chart, and we will see what is going inside a Helm chart. So I have created a Helm chart named demo. Now let me go into that folder. Yeah, you look at these files. We have a chart folder, and we have a template folder, and we have a chart YAML, and we have a values YAML. First, let's look into chart YAML. So if you look at the chart YAML, it has a name and a version of the chart that is being used. And then you look at what is the type of the chart it is, and what is the version of the chart, and what is the application version. All these details goes into chart.yaml. Now let's have a look at templates folder. So if you look at template folder, you see that there is deployment YAML, that is horizontal pod autoscaler YAML, and there is service YAML, there is ingress YAML, and there is service account YAML, and there is a test folder where we could test all these things. Now let's look at a sample YAML. I'm opening the deployment YAML. Yeah. So we are now looking into deployment YAML. Deployment YAML, see, if you look at this YAML, you could see that the values for names, labels, all these things are templated. And this templated values can be actually overridden within the values.yaml that we will look at it shortly. So now let's look at a values.yaml. Yeah, so this is a typical example where in the values.yaml we override the replica count as 1, and the values templated which is provided within the Helms are replaced here, and it replaces all the values. Now yeah, so this defaultly uses Nginx image. So let's deploy Nginx into the production, into the Kubernetes cluster, and see how does it work. So now next step, what we are going to do is now passing this values.yaml, we are going to actually we are going to actually generate the Helm template out of it. Yeah. So this command Helm install generate with a dry run will output the Helm template as a template YAML to us. We are outputting that into YAML called output YAML. Yeah, it's done now. So let's look at what is going into output YAML. So in output YAML, if you look at all the templates are rendered. So if you look at the deployment, the number of replicas is 1, whichever we have mentioned there. Now we will look into a scenario where we get into values.yaml and change the replica count and see if we are getting that changed. So we are changing the number of replicas to 10. And now we will regenerate the template. Yeah, it got generated. Let's look into the template. Yeah, now if you look at the number of replicas in the template, it is actually 10. So this is how Helm could help, where we could have a list of template files and put them into template folders and then override them with values. Now we have a YAML that can be deployed into production, but now we have many people that have policies that has to be overlaid over this YAML. Let's look into that example. So we'll go back and get into customize folder. Yeah. So we have the output YAML here, and let's look into, I have just created a customized YAML already and kept. So let's look into a customized.yaml. So customized.yaml will say, okay, what is the YAML on which I need to do overlay, and what is the actual overlay that I have to do? That will go into patch.yaml. So if this is a very simple definition. Now let's look into the patch.yaml. What is going into a patch.yaml? Yeah, if you say this is a patch that is provided by ops engineer, and assume that this patch is going into a continuous deployment cycle, which is there in the staging. So an ops engineer decides that in staging we just need 2 replicas, we need production, with 10 replicas, but in staging, we just need 2 replicas. So we have 2 replicas here. Now, let's quickly check the output. Let's customize this. Customize, build, will output this. So I'm outputting the YAML into a folder named final with final.yaml. Oh, that's a typo. Yeah, it customized. Now, if you go and look into this final.yaml, you will see that the number of replicas would have changed into the 2, which we have just mentioned. Yeah, see, in the same output.yaml, now the number of replicas changed into 2. Now the policies and patches are done by the patch that is applied by the ops engineer. As a next step, we will get into the final folder and then apply this YAML into Kubernetes cluster. So for saving some time, actually, I'm manually going to deploy into a local cluster. Actually, we could set up Flex or any other GitOps tool like Argo CD to deploy this into production. And there we could apply any kind of policies similar to writing a Rego policy that we saw in the last session. So now we are into the final folder. So we have final.yaml. So to apply the final.yaml. Now all the resources are created. Let's see if the pod is created fine. Yeah, so a couple of parts are getting created. It is in the process of getting created, and you could see that there is 2 replica over it. And this is a part that sits over the other 2 part to expose this part. They expose the Nginx. So that's with my demo. Now, if you guys have any questions, we could get into questions, or if you could also reach me in Twitter or Medium with this tag. I am Arun RK. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Arun. We have few questions. Is GitOps atomic deployment?
Yeah. You could do atomic deployments through GitOps.
Okay, and how does it differ from infrastructure as code?
Okay, so I call this infrastructure as data. If you ask myself, you could say it as infrastructure as code. You know, there is no if else to it. You completely declaratively specify what you want. What you provide is data, and the complete state machine sits within the Kubernetes cluster, and it manages the state. The code part sits within the cluster as controllers, as schedulers, and as various mechanisms within the Kubernetes cluster. We have an end-to-end declarative mechanism where we specify our intent, what is our intention, and that has been achieved within the cluster.
Okay, so the last one is, why should we use Git instead, not configuration database?
Okay, so once you put into Git, you get this version history. Once we have this version history, you get a lot of advantages, like things like you have security, what kind of changes the particular YAML has gone through, and you could do audits, compliance, and we could be able to easily rebuild the cluster out of the Git, and we will be able to do production hotfixes just like that. Okay, open the Git and then just change and then push. What this will make is this will make the whole workflow developer friendly, and instead of making it more ops oriented. So developers will be able to clearly see what is there within the cluster.
Okay, thank you.
So it is more of like a developer workflow. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Arun, for the new age DevOps practice to increase the delivery by achieving performance, and end-to-end Git source of truth, and with zero minimal changes into the Kubernetes cluster. Amazing session. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.